an absolute superstar in the Premier League. He's been absent for quite a while now, and it feels like even longer, I think, because he'd had an injury at the end of last season in the Champions League that ultimately, I think, had seen him move on. And I'd actually discussed with you before, I don't know if we discussed it on the pod, where I was thinking, is this the end of Kevin De Bruyne in the Premier League at the highest level? The recurring injuries.
Yeah.
You don't see stints of him in the team for as long as you used to, potentially because of the injuries, and ultimately Manchester City keep plodding on with or without him in the team. Now, that's not to discredit him at all, because this whole segment is actually going to be about talking about the qualities of Kevin De Bruyne. But it does beg the question as well, are they looking at now this is an aging player?
Yeah.
Despite how good he is on his day, how do we plan this moving forward? Because we can't rely on him for long periods of the season, unless now we see a stretch of him being featured in the team.
But you saw a real struggle with Haaland and De Bruyne both out for a fair chunk of time. They weren't getting the results that they normally would.
No, it was harder work, you'd say, than it was.
Yeah.
They were still getting there, but they didn't look as comfortable and clinical as what we've seen in previous years, especially last year.
Yeah. Because we didn't do a podcast that weekend, we didn't obviously talk about it, but we was all around yours, weren't we?
Oh, yeah.
On that Saturday. And Newcastle scored 2 cracking goals.
Yeah, they're playing well, Newcastle, in the game.
Yeah. Bernardo Silva scored an absolute cracker as well. He backheeled it to make it 2-1. So Newcastle's up 2-1 at half time. And I said to everyone around sitting there, didn't I? And I went, De Bruyne's coming on, and they win it 3-2.
I think that was your blind bias because you've got him in as your captain. You were backing yourself.
Yeah, I had to just give myself a bit of hope there. But it turned out to happen.
It was a game changer. He come on and literally won the game, really. He was the difference maker.
Yeah, and it was a touch of class. You don't realise... I think people started to forget, De Bruyne's out, but they couldn't, is it that much of a big deal? And you just notice as soon as he come back, stepped on the pitch, and even that assist to win the game.
Yeah, it's
unreal.
There's not many players in world football
can pull that off.
No, certainly not in the Premier League either. And he is the difference maker. He's proven that he's ever present. Hopefully, the fact that the injuries aren't going to hold him back at all. I do think it's a difficult one to weigh up because they've not had him for so long. But it showed when he comes back in with a performance like that. You're going to have to play me because I'm going to win your games.
Even though, obviously he is struggling with injuries now and again, if it does happen, do you know, what you actually mentioned, he's getting on a bit, and when some players get a lot of reoccurring injuries, it's normally the sign of them going.
It's the decline. It's an aging player.
Yeah,
he still can play at a fantastic level. Look, he's come off the bench and just delivered a performance like that.
But that's what I'm saying. If he is struggling with these injuries, say he gets injured again, it might just be worth keeping him anyway because he can pull off worldly performances like that.
I can see it as him being one of those players that, providing he's happy to and the manager's happy with it, that they just keep him until he retires. I do see it as being unlikely because the majority of players, especially at the highest level, go and get a bit of extra cash playing somewhere, whether it's the new one where people go to Saudi or historically the MLS and things like that.
Until they get relegated, you might as well keep him.
Well, I could see a world where he stays there, but it depends. I think it's a very difficult one to weigh up, but still proving that he's one of the best, if not the best player in the Premier League on his day.
I think he's got a shout to be in the all-time Premier League 11 now, just for the amount of years that he's been here now and the performances that he does. With him being out recently and shows how much they need him, I think he does have a shout to be in there.
I think he's in the conversation for sure. But if he was going to cement that, there's some more years needed yet, for me personally.
Yeah.
The levels are very, very high. He might even be better than some of the players you would potentially put in that 11. But some of the players that maybe come in there, for me, it's the amount of medals that they had over years.
The amount of appearances as well.
Yeah, he's got, for me, to be absolutely cemented. So I say he's in the conversation if somebody wanted to put him in, and that was their 11. I wouldn't argue with it that much. I think it's a reasonable pick.
Yeah.
However, for me, if I was going to put him in mine, there's another few Premier League medals needed and a bit more longevity at the level he's displayed to be an absolute cert. But in the conversation for sure.
I think how many Premier League medals has he got now? Do you know?
Well, Guardiola has won 5 with Manchester City.
He's been there the whole time, hasn't he?
I think it was a Guardiola signing, was he not?
No.
He wasn't.
He was there with Pellegrini.
In which case, he might have 6 then. But I know that Guardiola's got 5 for certain, so it's at least that many.
Yeah, let us have a look.
But obviously, then they wouldn't. So they had 1 under Pellegrini and 1 under Mancini. He definitely wasn't around Mancini, but you might be right. It might have been a Pellegrini signing. So he was there before.
He was there before, yeah, but he didn't win it.
But yeah, a lot of them there now have got 5. I think like someone like Phil Foden, I think is 5-time champion now.
Yeah,
and he obviously didn't get bedded in.
And what's he like? 22 as well. It's actually mad. Like the age of these players, and they've got all them cups now. No, he must be a 24 now, surely.
Yeah, I think he's only a little bit younger than Rashford, isn't he?
Yeah,
maybe a year or 2. But certainly cementing himself in the all-time Premier League conversation, and definitely in his position. But I mean, even across the board, I think a lot of people would say he's one of the best players that they've seen.
It says a lot when he's the player of the season for 2 of the seasons that he won the league. So
he's the difference maker. I mean, City have got some fantastic players, but ultimately, in a lot of circumstances, he's been the big game player. I mean, even remember last year against Arsenal when Arsenal were having that great run. And I mean, I never fancied him to win it ever. I always said it. If we had had the podcast at the time, I would have said it then. But I always thought City were going to do it and Arsenal would come up short. And one of those games was De Bruyne turning it on, showing that he is a different level. And in that position, he's easily the best in the league, if not in world football. So, not good to see him back from our point of view. Happy to see a spell on the sidelines anyway. But I mean, I suppose you do want to see the best players playing, but not when they play for your rivals. I think I'm happy to see him on the sideline.